We are joined by Marisa Contipelli, Bengals.com. The worst-kept secret in the National Football League became official yesterday when the Bengals announced that Zac Taylor was going to be their head coach. He was just introduced a couple hours ago at the Bengals facility, and Marisa was there. And actually, Marisa, I saw on social media that you actually got a little one-on-one with Zac Taylor as well. What's the overall mood of the young Zac Taylor, 35 years old, all of a sudden becoming the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals?
Well, you know what, Matt? I just have to say I have been very impressed with Zac Taylor so far. 2 days into the job, I feel like he has won everyone over. I thought he did a fantastic job at the press conference earlier this afternoon. But yesterday, the moment he stepped into Paul Brown Stadium, we had the chance to kind of meet him right away. We were doing a little behind-the-scenes feature with him. So we were introduced to him kind of right off the bat, getting to follow him along. He had a smile on his face almost the entire time. He said multiple times to us just how this was a dream come true, something he's been wanting since he kind of got into the coaching profession. And just absolutely impressed with his demeanor, just the way he's gone about himself. You can tell the energy is extremely high, even from the other staff members that, you know, we've come into contact with, a couple of players who have had the opportunity, who have been in the building rehabbing, who've gotten a chance to meet Zac so far. And I was absolutely impressed with the fact that yesterday morning I met him. It was about 11 o'clock, was introduced to him. Hours later is when I did the one-on-one interview with him. He remembered my name. I was blown away from the amount of people he met yesterday. He actually remembered my name, and I know he's done a lot with that, too, over the last couple of days. I've heard that from multiple people that he's been able to kind of remember people's names and positions. So I think he's done a great job 2 days into it.
Maybe you learned that from Sean McVay, the head coach of the Rams, who
Right.
has the photographic memory, and he's got that thing going on him. Zac Taylor's familiarity with Cincinnati, used to coach on the UC Bearcat staff and everything. Did that play any role into, does it make him any more comfortable? Did it play any role in his getting hired when he had the interviews? From what I read, he blew them away with the interview that he had. What are you hearing with regards to his familiarity with the town and also what he did in that interview, Marisa?
Well, I can't speak to the interview in depth. I've heard probably just as much as you had in terms of that he blew them away, and I know he had mentioned that he felt like it was going to be a perfect fit right off the bat. He just kind of had that comfort and that connection felt with the ownership and who was heading up the interview process. But Zac had made it clear that when him and his wife Sarah were here in their time during when they were with the Bearcats, that they absolutely fell in love with the city of Cincinnati. And I know I actually had a chance to meet Sarah today, and she said they were so excited that their kids are going back to the same school that they were when they were here with UC, and that they already had their house, and that they're just so excited to be back in this area, and that they love the people here. And I thought it was great that Zac even mentioned that Cincinnati, from all of his stops that he's been in coaching-wise, has been one of the best football towns he has been a part of, stemming from the high school football around here to college with the Bearcats program, and now here with the Bengals, that the fans here, it's a diehard football fandom around the city, and that it's something that they kind of thrive and like to be a part of.
Well, you know, he had to wait for a couple of weeks because he had that little Super Bowl thing going on, so he had to continue to coach Jared Goff there before he could really dive into it. But now he's there. You know, day one yesterday, day two today, does the introductory press conference. Any indication from him, Marisa, on top priorities? What does he need to get into right away as he hits the ground running as the new head coach?
Yeah, no, the two things that he listed off is going to be compiling his staff. That seemed to kind of be top priority number one, and we should expect to hear some announcements later in the week potentially in terms of who might be stepping into some of those roles for the Bengals staff in 2019. And then the second thing he did is he's mentioned is just getting familiar with this roster and the players. He said he didn't really have a chance up until Sunday night, once the Super Bowl is over, to really kind of delve into this roster. And as it should be, he didn't want to take anything away from his preparation for the Super Bowl with the Rams. And I thought that was exactly how it should be. You don't want a coach kind of feeling distracted in a sense. So I know he mentioned that he had a chance to speak with Andy Dalton. He met him yesterday as he was doing his walkthrough, and he thinks very highly of Andy, has a very high opinion of him, followed him when he played at TCU, has already said that Andy is going to be a good fit for what he wants to do on offense. So it'll be exciting and intriguing to see just how everything kind of comes together, and once he is kind of able to get into that roster, meet a few more players, because there have only been a handful of guys rehabbing around here who have gotten a chance to meet him so far.
Well, with the exception of the Super Bowl, it was an offensive year, and he coached, was on the staff of one of the best offenses in the league with the Rams. What did he say about, you mentioned him meeting Andy Dalton and feels like he's a good fit for what he wants to do. Did he talk at all in the press conference or with you about what he wants to do? Any glean into exactly what style of offense you feel like the Bengals are going to have with Zac Taylor as head coach?
Well, Matt, the word that I've heard the most over the last 2 days in regards to the offense is attack. And I got to tell you, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what will, because you want an offense that's going to go out there and attack. And he even addressed it in the press conference. He was asked if he'd kind of want to emulate what the Rams did on offense. And he was very direct about it. He said, you know, you want to take what they've done because it was successful. They'd shown the creativity, but you want to make it your own style. And I think that's where it's going to come into play with the assistants he ends up hiring onto his staff in terms of, you know, what they had going on with their offenses and different backgrounds. So, yes, you can kind of expect to take some away from the Rams. He did use the term creative, and he said, you know, the players are going to be excited to get to work in this type of offense. And I'm sure we're all excited to see what he's going to kind of scheme up when you have A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross, Joe Mixon, Giovanni Bernard, just a plethora of weapons on that offensive side.
Visiting with Marisa Contipelli, Bengals.com, the introductory press conference earlier today of Zac Taylor, the new head coach of the Bengals, and Marisa got to talk to him one-on-one. I'm wondering, I mean, you said at the press conference that you were impressed with and did a very good job, and, you know, obviously it's important to make that good first impression. How, I don't know, What has been the fan reaction? I mean, they're going with a young coach, and that seems to be the trend in the league. You know, he worked under Sean McVay, who got the Rams to the Super Bowl. Arizona goes and hires Cliff Kingsbury. The Bengals do this with Zac Taylor. What is the fan reaction? How aware was the Bengals organization in getting the right guy, not only to coach the football team, but to invigorate that fan base in Cincinnati?
Yeah, that's a great question, Matt, and that was actually brought up in the press conference earlier today. Mike Brown was asked in terms of kind of not necessarily losing the fan base, but, you know, this season was a little tougher than those in the past when it comes to fan reaction and fan engagement. And he was very straightforward with it that, you know, they felt that they needed to make a change and go in a different direction. And Zac even addressed it to a point and said, you know, it's not going to be an overnight kind of change. And he even addressed that when he talked about like changing the culture of this place, which is something that he also, spoke of during today's press conference. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a gradual progression. And I can't even think of a better way to describe that, because that's exactly what it's going to be. I mean, the fans, from what I've seen so far on social media and the ones that I've had interactions with, are very excited. There's a lot of positivity going on, that they believe this is a great direction for the organization to take. And especially that you had Marvin Lewis, who was a defensive-minded coach for so long. Now you're completely changing gears and bringing in an offensive mind to lead this team. And Zac Taylor did tell us that he does plan on calling plays for this upcoming season. So there's a lot of change, and I think that's kind of what the fans wanted heading into this year.
Last thing, Marisa, and just from an expectation standpoint, if you look at the Bengals last year, until they got ravaged with injury, you could look at them two ways. You could look at them last place in the division. They ended terribly, and boy, he's got a major rebuilding job to do. On the other hand, when they were healthy, they were right there. I mean, they were leading the division, and then injury after injury after injury, and it went totally south. What are the expectations for Zac Taylor in his first year? What are the expectations of the town for the Cincinnati Bengals team going forward here?
I would say the expectation is this team wants to be competitive and get back to those winning ways. I mean, these players in the locker room, they are hungry. You have the Carlos Dunlaps, the Geno Atkins, who want to get back to that form that they were in 2015, want to get back to the playoffs. There's a lot of veterans on this team who know what this that the players with this team is capable of. And I don't think I would call it a rebuilding season. I think you said it perfectly. If they hadn't sustained all of those injuries, we would have been a very different team down the stretch at the end of the season.
No doubt about it. Marisa, great job. Saw your stuff on social media, and I know how busy you are today with all the activities in your job. We appreciate you taking a few minutes for us.
It's busy, but it's fun, Matt. Thank you as
No
always.
doubt. It's a good busy. That's right.
Yes.